Mother-daughter relationships have captured the imaginations of creatives since the dawn of film or literature. However, too often these stories tell the same narrative, and we end up getting stuck in a loop of the same 3 to 4 stories. This is, of course, not to discredit these creators. Movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, Turning Red, Lady Bird, Freaky Friday, or Brave are important movies that women all over the world are able to relate to. However, I noticed that when we discuss mother-daughter relationships in pop culture, Mexican and Mexican-American women, also known as Chicanas, are almost always left out of the conversation, at least in America. Some of us may have read The House on Mango Street in high school, but that is where this discussion starts and ends. In this video, I hope to change that. Hello, it is I, Pesto.fresno, aka Maris, aka a person who has a mom, and today we are going to be talking about something a little different. For my English final, I was given the opportunity to create a creative work alongside my final essay. I, of course, jumped on this opportunity to use this as a way to revive my YouTube channel. Hopefully by the end of however many minutes we are together, I will have answered 3 questions for you. Who is a Chicana? What makes mother-daughter relationships different in Mexican-American literature? How does the evolution of Chicana feminism appear in the literary depiction of 3 different mother-daughter relationships? I do feel like it is important to point out that although I have put a lot of time into making this video, I am not Chicana, Chicano, Mexican-American, I am not any of that. This is not my lived experience, it is experiences that I have read about while taking this class and read about while preparing to film this video. Also, this video will be accompanying an essay I'm writing. Hopefully it will be linked in the description. If it is not, I will find some other way to get it to you. I'm sure you can DM me on Instagram and I will share the link. But hopefully it will be available in the description of this video, down there. Perfect. I also want to say this will be different than my other book reviews. I am not setting out with the intention of spoiling any of the books we will be discussing. However, I do have a point to make in this video, and I will share any plot points that I think are necessary to get my point across, so consider this your spoiler warning. That being said, thank you for clicking on this video or watching this video if you're being forced to by me, and let's get into it. Part 1. Okay, what are you talking about? Let's start with defining some terms that I will be using frequently in both this video and the essay this video is attached to. The following definitions were pulled from the Smithsonian's online resource, specifically their page on Mexican America. Specifically, the glossary of that page will be linked down here as well. Mexican American. This term describes a wide category of people who live in the United States and who have a familial link to Mexico or Mexican culture. It can include people who have roots in the territory conquered by the United States in the Mexican-American War and who might not speak Spanish, as well as recent immigrants, some of whom might speak an indigenous language. Anglo. In Texas, New Mexico, and other areas of the United States with a large Hispanic or Mexican-American population, Anglo, from Anglo-Saxon, refers to white English speakers, their cultures, and their historical perspectives. This term, which is rooted in real social and territorial conflict, reflects a long-standing perception of cultural difference between the descendants of English and the Spanish-speaking colonists. Chicana and Chicano. In the late 1960s, men and women of Mexican descent in the western and southwestern United States were developing new political strategies and elaborating new identities. Chicano for men and Chicana for women are old labels that were reclaimed to signal engagement in the struggle for social justice and equity in housing, education, labor rights, and other areas. Still current, Chicano indicates a cultural outlook rooted in the indigenous past, one that does not favor Hispanic origins or whiteness, but absorbs and reinterprets American popular culture. In this video, I'll be focusing specifically on Mexican American women and Chicana feminism. The Chicana feminist movement originated in the 1960s and 1970s alongside second wave feminism that was hitting kind of the rest of the United States, especially white women. It brought a specific cultural lens to the movement and specified that although women were a driving force in the Chicano movement, they were routinely excluded from conversations, shoved aside, and hidden away inside the home. This theme of exclusion from life outside of the family unit, the house, the home, the kitchen will be a driving force in the rest of this video. Part 2. The difference between Anglo and Chicana mother-daughter relations. A brief breakdown. Now, this video is specifically about mother-daughter relationships in Mexican American literature. I think because of that, it is important to point out and clearly define what makes these relationships different in Mexican American culture than in other cultures or heritage groups. I would like to read you a section of an article written by Linda C. Fox titled Obedience and Rebellion: Revision of Chicana Myths of Motherhood. She writes, Anglo-feminism has only recently embraced the maternal past, reacting at last against matrophobia defined by Adrienne Rich as the fear not of one's mother or of motherhood, but of becoming one's mother. As Rich explains, in a desperate attempt to know where mother ends and daughter begins, we perform radical surgery. Just by examining Anglo-centric media, I believe this is easily seen as true. When I think of some of the greatest American or modern depictions of mother and daughtership in media, I immediately think of Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird. It is a very complex film, a breakdown of miscommunication and love and anger and denial and acceptance, but at least at a large scale, it is absolutely a story of a young woman experiencing fear towards becoming similar to her mother. Lady Bird wants nothing more, at least for the majority of the film, than to escape the life her mother lives and has assigned to her as well. Her mother enjoys life in Sacramento. That could be further from the truth for Lady Bird. I would also look at the Pixar film Brave. Our main character, the free-spirited Scottish Princess Merida, begs to change her traditional mother, quite literally turning her into a bear. The only way to change her back, to quote the movie, is mend the bond torn by pride. There are more instances than these two in which a young adult woman, usually white, runs away from her mother to fully reject the life her mother lives and the mother wants to see her daughter live. Some end happy, some don't, but the point is, it is more about the separation than whatever connected them in the first place. Chicana feminists seem to take a much more nuanced, multifaceted approach towards motherhood. It is not necessarily a separation of mother-daughter into two distinct figures. The mother, the pitiful one, stuck in the past, and the daughter, the wiser one, moving into the ever-changing future. It is instead an ever-growing web that shifts for both parties, bending for culture and connecting generations of women. Linda Fox continues, this apparently has not been as characteristic of Chicana relationships, where a deep commitment to family is coupled with a respect for the contributions of the mother, including work traditionally done by women. However, the heritage passed from mother to daughter is not an easy one in any male-dominant culture. Although they may appreciate the difficulties in their mothers' lives, Chicanas too write about not wanting to repeat them. The traditional life of la mujer was a saddle I did not want to bear. Daily we feel the pull and tug of having to choose between which parts of our mother's heritage we want to claim and wear and which parts have served to cloak us from the knowledge of ourselves. Chicanas seem much less focused on the surgical removal of mother from daughter, or vice versa. Instead, they recognize what struggles their own mothers went through. They acknowledge that just a generation before their own, the ability to make a home, to build a family, was a privilege. Their mothers gave their entire lives up to chance, going through extreme hardship just to keep their children and families safe and happy. In school, Mexican American girls were treated as lost causes educationally. In the 1940s, most Mexican American children were only educated vocationally. A Los Angeles school for Mexican American children stated that girls will have more extensive sewing, knitting, crocheting, drawn work, rug weaving, and pottery. They will be taught personal hygiene, homemaking, care of the sick. With the aid of a nursery, they will learn the care of little children. Women of this generation weren't just mothers by choice. They were literally educated in the art of motherhood. They were primed to be the perfect homemaker, just like white kids of the time were being primed to be artists, scientists, writers, teachers, politicians. This is a luxury these women never got. The Chicanas of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and now did not view their mothers as evil, oppositional beings with awful lives to be feared and avoided. They understood their mothers to be victims of a system much larger than any of them. As a feminist scholar and philosopher, Gloria Anzaldúa claimed that Chicano culture holds three expectations when it comes to its women and their assumed identity. The culture and the church insist that women are subservient to males. If a woman rebels, she is a mujer mala, a bad woman. If a woman doesn't renounce herself in favor of the male, she is selfish. If a woman remains a virgin until she marries, she is a good woman. For a woman of my culture, there used to be only three directions she could turn: to the church as a nun, to the streets as a prostitute, or to the home as a mother. To not choose a life at home wasn't just to reject the notion of kids, it was to reject the notion of a complete identity, friends, and safety. If you did not actively choose to be the perfect doting wife to your husband and the mother to your kids, your only other options were nunship, where you would lack close familiar and friendly bonds, or prostitution, where you would risk death, illness, and danger every time you stepped outside your door. However, this rich history can also be a source of tension. As the article I read by Fox said earlier, how do Mexican American women navigate the thin line between showing respect for their mother's struggle, and by extension their culture's struggle, and actively fighting to avoid that for themselves and future women? An article by Margaret Cantu Sanchez titled "The Fourth Choice: Forging the Future of Chicane Mother-Daughter Relationships Through Storytelling and the Path of Conocimiento" in Erica Sanchez's "I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter" and Barbara Rayna Gonzalez's "Golondrina, Why Did You Leave Me?" ask a similar question. Cantu Sanchez cites Cristina Herrera and her research into Chicana mother-daughter relationships in film and literature. Herrera says, "Must the mother-daughter relationship be always already a source of rejection and subordination, or can it be a space in which these women achieve agency, subjectivity, and empowerment? If Chicana motherhood has long been shaped through cultural, patriarchal norms that led to a disconnected or ambivalent mother-daughter relationship, can motherhood be rewritten to liberate mothers and their daughters?" So, how do Chicana authors use their relationships with their mothers to inspire change? Not just change for themselves or an undefined future generation, but change also for their mothers. Part 3. The literature. Now, like I said in the intro, this video is ultimately for a class. In that class, we read 5 novels, and 3 of them specifically, I think, give us great insight into both Chicana feminism and mother-daughter relationships in Mexican American culture. Those books are Under the Feet of Jesus by Helena Maria Viramontes, The Distance Between Us by Rayna Grande, and The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. Let's get into the books. In Under the Feet of Jesus, we follow a tween narrator named Estrella as she transitions into womanhood. On the surface, this can read as a very traditional coming-of-age novel. There is love, there is family, there's heartbreak, there's struggle, there's kind of acceptance as a person. Really, the only main difference on the surface is that instead of being set at some rich high school with like sports teams, it is set on a farm in a shack with extremely impoverished agricultural workers as the main characters. I feel like hidden behind the coming of ageness, the teen romance, the parental drama, there is a really beautiful mother-daughter story to unravel between Estrella and Petra. Estrella's mother, Petra, has lived a very difficult life. Estrella's biological father left her, leaving her to take care of her and her siblings. She could not support the household. She was not let into social spheres. She couldn't even enter the same job market. She meets a man named Perfecto, who is a bit older, cold to both her and her kids, but he does work as a father figure, taking on her kids and taking care of her, most importantly. Petra, as we learn, is pregnant with Perfecto's child, which, side note, when we learn this in the book, that was like the most spirited class discussion I've ever had in a class ever. People were gooped and gagged, as they say. She grapples with this unnamed child multiple times through the story. She's kind of lost. She knows that she needs Perfecto, and she does not feel strong enough to carry this family forward anymore. Estrella, meanwhile, is experiencing her first love, a boy working on the same farm named Alejo. Alejo gets sick, and Estrella steps up and asks her family to take care of him. They take him to a doctor first, and then ultimately, as kind of the climax of the novel, they take him to a hospital and leave him there, with Estrella grappling with the fact that she will probably never see him again, but she needs to find him the help that he requires. While her mother has a well-deserved mental breakdown of sorts, and Perfecto thinks about abandoning the family, Estrella climbs on top of this barn and states, Estrella remained as immobile as an angel standing on the verge of faith. Like the chiming bells of the great cathedrals, she believed her heart powerful enough to summon home all those who strayed. This marks her literal shift into womanhood. However, I feel more symbolically, it marks her shift into the head of this household. I think in some ways she is promising to take care of her mother, dissolving her responsibility and kind of saying, it's okay, I've got this now. Because Petra can't take care of Estrella anymore. She's chronically ill, she's pregnant, she's got several young children and an older husband to take care of. This interpretation feels very loving compared to other depictions of mother-daughter relationships in media. She's not turning into a woman just to leave her mother like many coming-of-age texts. She is uplifting her mother and helping Petra in the way Petra could not help others. She also extends her heart to everyone, her culture, her family, those who the past left behind, and those who the future has not yet introduced. In Chicana culture, the mother-daughter relationship is intertwined with Mexican-American culture, so it makes sense that Estrella has intertwined her heritage and her mother into her own personal goal for her womanhood. The Distance Between Us is a memoir written by and starring Rayna Grande, a Mexican-American author. Her relationship with her mother as a child and young adult is much more complex. Her mother left her in Mexico as she went to search for a better life in El Otro Lado, America, with Rayna's father. When she returned to Mexico, Rayna did not recognize the broken woman who returned. The main theme of this novel is obviously distance. We start with physical distance. Rayna's mother and father are living in America while Rayna and her siblings grow up in Mexico. Her parents were completely absent for the most formative part of her childhood. However, we also grapple with emotional distance alongside Rayna. She craves her mother's love, and although she does have maternal figures like her sister Mago and later on Mila, her father's girlfriend, nothing can replace the love of her mother. But as she grows up, she realizes her mother is just as broken as her. Her mother was abused by her father, left America, went back to Mexico, and ended up falling into a similar cycle of abuse that just kept repeating for her. Her mother also cannot quite escape the poverty she tried desperately to leave behind in Mexico. Yes, she lives in Los Angeles, but she lives in filth with roaches and rats and super cramped environments that aren't good to raise kids or to live yourself as an adult. Ultimately, at the end of the novel, as we see Rayna reach maturity and adulthood, we see that she also has to leave her mother behind. Although the gap of physical distance has closed, the gap of emotional distance can never heal. Leaving her abusive childhood and entering her adulthood was not easy. It was not freeing. Oftentimes, Rayna employs the visual message of leaving her umbilical cord behind in Mexico, where her mother buried it. Rayna recognizes that, like leaving the umbilical cord, when she leaves her current life, she is severing a part of herself completely and permanently. A part that will truly never be 100% refilled, reconnected, or replaced. Just like the umbilical cord ties her to Mexico, she will forever be tied to her mom just because that is her mom. It is important to point out that, compared to her siblings, Rayna is fiercely proud of her Mexican heritage. She says, "How could I stop myself from feeling sad that Mago no longer cared about Mexico? That she didn't think of this place as special because it was once our home? Her home was now the United States. Unlike me, she had no accent when she spoke English. Now I knew why that was. Even in her speech, she was trying to erase Mexico completely. I don't know if I ever could, or would want to." This reveals so much about Grande to me, at least in this passage. She is clinging to home, to her culture and her heritage with all of her might, especially compared to her family. Half of that culture is her mother. It feels to her like a tie to her culture has been permanently undone, never to be connected again. This bad relationship with her mother isn't just trauma to be shared over coffee or the internet like it is for some people, especially some American people. It is directly losing half of her culture, and as we learn in the novel, her relationship with her father isn't much better. So if she loses both of these connections to her culture, what connection does she have besides herself? The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros is probably my favorite out of these texts. Don't tell the other books I said that. We follow Esperanza, a Chicana girl, as she grows up impoverished in Chicago. Throughout the book, which is written in a short story episodic format, we encounter a variety of women who are trapped by their lovers, their finances, or just by their own minds. It becomes very clear that Esperanza will do anything possible to avoid turning out like these women. And her mom is one of these women. She recounts this story she heard, her mom talking to her, where she says, "I could have been somebody, you know," my mother says and sighs. "She can speak 2 languages. She can sing an opera. She knows how to fix a TV. But she doesn't know which subway train to take to get downtown. I hold her hand very tight while we wait for the train to arrive." Later in the same story, her mother explains how she gave up her passion and her education to ultimately become a homemaker. This terrifies Esperanza. She cannot imagine anything worse than giving up her hobby, writing, and being stuck at a place like Mango Street forever. So she dreams of leaving. It is her one goal, her one aspiration. It's everything she's working towards. In particularly tough times, she will imagine her future house. It's a place without men. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's filled with books, it's filled with knowledge, it's filled with love. This is what she wants. However, she knows her future isn't solitary. She acknowledges that at some point she will have to return to Mango Street. This is what she says. "Friends and neighbors will say, 'What happened to that Esperanza? Where did she go with all those books and paper? Why did she march so far away?' They will not know that I have gone away to come back. For the ones I left behind, and for the ones who cannot out." She recognizes that to achieve true liberation for herself, she has to liberate everybody else. She must fight for every single woman she knows that cannot fight for themselves. She will leave Mango Street for a time, but ultimately she will return so that she can take her people back with her. This, of course, includes her mother. She wants actively to bring her mother into a better world. She is using her Chicana-ness, her feminism, her love for her culture, her love for her mother, not to leave her mother, to abandon her mother, but to save her mother. Ultimately, I believe the article I cited before by Linda C. Fox says it best. The revolution begins at home. Up until the recent past, obedience was survival for Mexican American women. So what happens when their daughters reject this system? Does this mean they are rejecting their mothers? In my opinion, no. There is no homemaker mother versus feminist rebel Chicana daughter because there is no versus. When Chicana women set out to change how they are treated, they fought to bring their mothers with them. I believe this is reflected perfectly in all three novels. In Under the Feet of Jesus, our main character Estrella steps gracefully into womanhood, knowing what her mother went through and vowing to improve life for her mother, her family, and her culture as a whole. In The Distance Between Us, Rayna Grande autobiographically recounts her experiences growing up in both Mexico and America. She dictates the pain she felt at both the hands of her mother and the pain she felt watching her mother experience abuse from every man that enters her life. Rayna has to leave her mother, along with her father, to save herself, both literally and figuratively. But in this action, she knows that she's leaving behind a large part of herself that can never be replaced. And in the house on Mango Street, Esperanza escapes Mango Street, therefore escaping the patriarchy, poverty, and pain. But she escapes with the knowledge that she must come back. For her mother, who never got the luxury to say no, to the women she met, living lives that she would never dream of for herself, she has to go back and save them, or she's truly never saved herself. Thank you for listening. Hello to my English professor. I hope you got this far. And I hope you liked the video. If you did not like the video, that would be very, very awkward for me. To everyone else, thank you. Hello as well. Thank you for watching. This was a really fun project to put together. Like I said, the essay will hopefully be linked below, or you could DM me on Instagram to get it. I hope you learned something. If you didn't learn anything, I hope you at least enjoyed watching the video. If you didn't enjoy watching the video, then, thank you for the engagement, I guess. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope your dreams come true. And as always, thank you for watching. Bye-bye. My dog is snoring so loud right now. Okay.